Hello and welcome everybody to Game Flicks and Chill. This is your podcast where we talk about gaming, movies, pretty much anything we want to talk about. We can talk about it here on Game Flicks and Chill. This week we have a very interesting but special podcast where we're going to talk a little bit about The Walking Dead. I am Nick. This is Dante. Welcome to Game Flicks and Chill. I have watched all of The Walking Dead, and I say that and I regret it just saying it. Um, I started watching in season two, and I think I quit for a little while after season eight. But then once it all became available on Netflix, I did watch it all. And when did you start watching The Walking Dead?
Season 1, episode 1.
Okay, so you were at um you watched it from the very launch, and that launch was on Halloween of 2010.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's been 14 years, almost 14, 13 years and a few months since the show originally started. Um just I guess we'll just talk a little bit about season 1 here. I think that the Walking Dead pilot might be my favorite pilot on TV, like in the history of TV. It might just be like my favorite pilot. It's just so good. There's very few TV shows where I can go and I can just watch the first and second, because you when you're like binge watching TV shows, you especially one that you've watched before, you end up getting a like so much that happens in the first season, and then the middle seasons it's like, like what's I don't really remember this that fondly. And then you always remember the end and the beginning. But the season 1 through probably 4 or 5, those are some of the best seasons in TV history, and it's like those are the ones I always want to watch. Um in season 1, it explains the rules of like the Walking Dead universe. They go to the CDC, they meet the guy at the CDC, he tries to kill them all. And yeah, dude, I love that first episode. While I don't necessarily love the rest of season 1, I just think it's insane. Like the storytelling and everything in those first few seasons is just incredible. We never had anything like that prior to The Walking Dead. Um, I have a little stat here. Walking Dead was like the AMC's first like real big hit show. Prior to that,
Yeah.
they had like Mad Men, who peaked at like 2.3 million viewers, which is still insane numbers. Um, Breaking Bad, even, which is it's crazy to say this because it's Breaking Bad was prior to The Walking Dead. Um, Never reached even 2 million viewers for a single episode. And it like the reason why I say it's crazy to say that is because it's now considered one of possibly, in my opinion, probably the greatest TV show that has ever aired. I can go on all day about Breaking Bad, but the statistic that blows my mind is that when The Walking Dead premiered on Halloween of 2010, it premiered the first episode to 5.35 million viewers.
I believe that.
Double. Dude, that's like double, over double what Mad Men did prior to The Walking Dead airing. And while I don't think it's like personally like best season, I think it does a really good job of, like I said, explaining the rules, explaining not may not necessarily how the outbreak happened, but like what is going on, and it focuses in on our characters, and it shows us characters that are staples of the series that you know lasted from episode 1 to the runtime, for the entirety of the series. um what are your thoughts on season 1?
My thing is, I dislike any show really, but I dislike every first season of a show because yeah, most of the time there's not really not nitty gritty. It's just there's these few characters, and this is their background, and they're walking.
Yeah.
It does. I need it to pick up fast, and usually the first season doesn't have it for me. But like out of every first season I've watched, it's definitely in my top five.
Like I said, I think that first episode did so goddamn well, and out of all of the episodes in season 1, obviously there were only 6, and the first one just did so well with creating the atmosphere, creating the universe, and everything after that. It's just like, okay, like where are we going from here? But like if you were to watch a single episode from a season, I'd say episode 1, season 1 is just written very well. Um, the showrunner for season 1 was Frank Darabont, and uh, he I believe he had a relationship, like a very good relationship with um the writers of the comic or the graphic novel. Um but I think there were some issues in the at the corporate level of AMC where for season 2 he ended up just leaving the show. So with that being said, I guess we get into season 2. And it's more or less some of the same. Season 2 and 3, the showrunner was Glenn Mazra, and that's the farm arc.
Hmm.
Um, some of the highlights from it are, they're they left the CDC after finding out, everyone had this virus. Well, Rick found out, um, and they're just trying to find someplace safe. They're on the highway, they lose Sophia, and then they get to the farm. Carl gets shot, um, and they have to get medical supplies to save Carl. Herschel, who is a vet in the animal sense, not the war sense, help save his life. Uh,
Rest in peace to Herschel.
yeah, R.I.P. Herschel. We're getting there. Um, in season 2, one of the there's a like the running theme with The Walking Dead is that the seasons that they created for the show are also very different from what happens in the graphic novel. So like the farm arc was like very short in the graphic novel. So I remember people being a little bit, fans of the graphic novel being a little bit upset that they focused an entire season on being at the farm. And I, I think that the farm arc was important to have. It's a good arc. There's not a whole lot that happens. They lose Sophia, like I said, Carl gets shot, but it really goes to just show like the downfall of the old world. Like the rules of the old world are gone. And you see that with Shane, um, you know, pretty much wanting to kill that kid who remember after they killed all the walkers in the barn and they killed Sophia, which was just a heart-wrenching thing because you know, everyone wanted Sophia to still be alive, you know. But as a viewer and even as like all the characters went on throughout the season, like we all knew she was dead.
Yeah.
But everyone was holding on to that hope that she was alive. And it was just like truly masterful writing and show running. Did you know that in the graphic novel that like Carl getting shot was just like a minor injury and he was like back up and running in like a few days?
I did see, I know bits and pieces of it, and yes, I did know that, but I figured like I don't know.
That doesn't make
I,
good TV.
yeah.
It's not a life or death. So a good portion of that is Carl getting shot, which is how they get to the farm in the first place because Otis shoots Carl on accident trying to shoot a deer. Um, there were some interesting facts about that whole scene, but I can't quite remember them. In comparison to the graphic novel. Um, yeah, like originally this whole arc was just much shorter, but the way Shane is like starting to think that Rick doesn't have what it takes because Rick is living in the old world. Shane is slipping, and you start
I
to
think they did a really good way of showing what Rick was going to become through Shane.
dude, I was just about to say that, but I was gonna say it later,
Oh
like
well, hey.
in the next season. Um, yeah, like Shane was ahead of the curve. Did he crossed some boundaries, of course, but like he very much knew what needed to be done. He just crossed some boundaries and started. You really started to see Shane slipping after what he had to do to Otis to keep Carl alive because he very much. It's not like he's just this psychopath. He very much did care, and all of that shit really did start weighing on him after he killed Otis to save Carl's life because they had to go get the medical supplies. But yeah, so they're at the farm. Carl almost dies. They encounter that group after they kill all the walkers in the barn. They go to town. That group of strangers, not so friendly, come to the bar. Rick kills two of them, and that kid impales himself, which is another great little subplot in the season where they got to figure out what they're gonna do with this kid. Um, and they Dale dies, and Rick
Oh
is like,
yeah.
yeah, we gotta let this kid go. Shane is very much like, we can't let this kid go. He knows where we are. He's gonna come back with his people. So then, ultimately, like Shane ends up taking matters into his own hands, kills this kid, pretends like this kid attacked him. Rick, by the way, sees right through it, and Shane lures Rick out into the woods, and um, Rick kills Shane, and then Carl puts Walker Shane down. Farm gets overrun. It's pretty good theme. You know, you're somewhere safe. Oh, it gets overrun. But all in all, good season. Shows the downfall of the old world and shows, like you said, very much so. Like we get a glimpse at what Rick is to become with what happens with Shane. It peaked viewership at 6.9 viewers, which is a 30% increase from the previous season. And obviously they're overrun and the group gets Andrea gets split off from the group. The rest of the group, regroups, and then they're kind of just like scavenging until season 3, which is my favorite arc, the prison arc.
That's my least favorite arc.
Really, I loved the. You didn't like season 3?
No, they ruined it when they killed T Dog.
I literally have in my notes here, R.I.P. T Dog.
Yeah, yeah.
I
That
so
whole arc.
yeah, I remember when I because at this point it was like full swing. You and I were watching it. We were talking about it. Everybody was watching it and talking about it. Um, so the group is kind of wandering, and they find this prison. They say it's a good place. This is the start of the Ricktatorship. Rick gives that monologue where, like, at the end of, I don't know if it's the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, he's like, I'm in charge here. You guys are all alive because of me. This ain't a democracy anymore. And he just like takes full charge. This is the beginning of everyone called it the Ricktatorship. So you get into the prison arc. They go find the prison. They claim the prison. Lori dies in childbirth, giving birth to Judith. T Dog and Carol get split off. T Dog dies to save Carol. And dude, Rick went fucking crazy this season.
Okay, I do have to say the start of the Ricktatorship that it was peak Rick.
Yeah, peak.
Like it was one of those ones where it's like no matter what Rick did, if I was in that situation, I'm following him.
Yep, exactly. And they wrote him in such a way, and he was portrayed in such a way that this guy's doing what needs to be done, and he's probably gonna keep me alive. So yeah, I'm gonna listen to him. He just like assumed all control. Do you remember? It's weird because as a kid, I really hated this episode, but the episode where Rick's like literally going crazy and he's just diving into the deep corridors of the fucking prison and just killing everything, every zombie or walker. We won't call them zombies. Every
Oh,
walker that's
yeah.
in
I
his.
remember all that.
Yeah,
I
the
do.
the episode with the phone where he's talking to all of the people that he has lost. So like Andrea's sister, Lori's on the phone, Shane's on the phone, and they're like, we're someplace safe. He's literally losing his mind, and he picks the phone up and realizes the phone isn't even connected.
Yep.
As a kid, I like hated that. But I think it was because my brain wasn't like advanced enough to like understand what was happening. I watched it not this past November, but like January 2023, watching those episodes back. Holy shit, dude. Incredible writing. We get introduced to Tyrese and Sasha. Michonne really comes in this season, and return of Merle after we leave him on the roof in in Georgia
You know,
or
Merle was
Atlanta.
pretty peak when he came back. He was peak for a while.
Yeah. Um, Introduction of the governor and the people of Woodbury. Uh, the governor sees the prison as a threat and wants to take it over, and does a bunch of shady shit behind the scenes. Uh, Michonne kills his Walker daughter, kind of puts him over the edge,
Yep.
and then Michonne is given sanctuary at the prison, kind of. Rick doesn't want to let any new people in, which is why Tyrese and Sasha end up at Woodbury. You know, people capture Glenn, Maggie. There's pretty much all out fucking war breaks loose between the prison and Woodbury, and the governor loses, and then he fucking ices his entire. He murders his entire army that was following him at the prison. Um, then the like our regular group decides to take in the Woodbury residents. Andrea dies. This season is my personal favorite season. Aside from T Dog dying, I loved T Dog. It peaked viewers at 10.75 million, which is a 50% increase from the previous season. So, like, viewership was climbing. People were on Walking Dead fever. Call of Duty's putting Merle on a zombies map. And, dude, just incredible, incredible storytelling, incredible everything. Watching this one season back is just like my favorite part of trying to watch The Walking Dead, you know? Um and this was showrunner Glenn Mazra. With season 4, though, oh, before we continue, any thoughts on season 3 other than it sucks that T-Dog died?
No, I mean, I was glad when Andrea died. There was she's it was one of those things where literally no matter what she did, even if it was down to the smallest thing, she just kept pissing me
Yeah,
off.
it was she's just like the notice me girl. Like, no, don't do that.
Yeah,
She has moments where she's like a complete badass, and then she has moments where it's like, dude, you just don't know what needs to be done. So she kept trying to find peace between the two groups, Woodbury and the prison, and she was dating the governor and was incapable of seeing like what a monster the governor was. And she just didn't. She just didn't pop off for me, and it's one of the characters that like I didn't mind seeing die. You know what I mean? Did you know the
yeah,
actress that plays Andrea was originally supposed to be cast to play Lori?
really.
Yeah, but they went with the actress for Lori, which honestly, good call. Um, so yeah, we move on to season 4. This, the governor's defeated. This is the still the prison arc, but it's like a subplot of the prison arc. I call it Farmer Rick.
It's the calm before the storm.
Exactly. So Rick is like really trying to realize, hey, I was going kind of crazy. I gotta calm down now. And so the everybody from Woodbury moved to the prison. Um, One quick thing I want to note is this is a new showrunner at this point. This is Scott Gimble, and he was showrunner from season 4 to season 8. And this is the beginning of what he called boomerang storytelling. We'll get into that a little bit later because I think the first half of season 4 was good. The second half was like just
It was there.
fucking you're falling asleep in your fucking chair trying to watch that shit. But so yeah, we're in Farmer Rick, a subplot of the prison arc. Rick's calming down. The community seems to be prospering, but a flu begins to spread. People get sick. Carol kills a bunch of the sick people, and uh, Rick banishes her, like sends her away. Meanwhile, the governor's building a new army, which first we're introduced to Tara. He comes back, kills Herschel, and attacks the prison with this new army, and the prison collapses. So that's like pretty much a brief synopsis of the first half of season 4. The group kind of gets split up, and then they start heading for Terminus. So like beginning of the Terminus arc is like halfway through season 4. And this is where I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, my elbow just that hurt. Oh, my elbow just popped." Um, yeah, start of the Terminus arc where they're fucking with the wrong people. It's a little note I have here. And like I said, beginning of Boomerang storytelling really happens here. So like the group's all split up, and Scott Gimble had this wonderful idea of, which is not that sarcasm for the audio listener, uh, to tell a story 1 week and then tell another story the other week. And then you go 4 weeks telling individual stories, and then it boomerangs back to that first story he started telling. So like everyone is getting kind of their own little story, which when you I don't know, the way it's done, it's just very boring, you know? And I think you can attribute it to a lot of decline in viewership, but viewership did not decline for a little while yet. So they all start walking towards Terminus. So they're split up. Beth gets kidnapped. We get introduced to Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene. They're trying to get Eugene to DC. Um, Everyone gets captured at Terminus, except Carol and Tyrese. That's also one of the cool things about this episode or this season is one of the lines Rick says when he gets captured. He's like, there's a duffel bag out there. It's got this gun in it, this gun, and a machete with a red handle. And he looks at the Terminus leader and he goes, "That's what I'm going to kill you with." It's like, oh, Rick is like, Rick had to come back
That's
because of the
when we get
government.
Wild Man
Yeah,
Rick.
Wild
That's where he
Man Rick
turns.
starts coming out right there. So they get captured, and Rick, they're all in the train car at the end of the season, and I mean I was still hyped at this point of the series when I was watching it on TV, and Rick turns around and the rest of his group has also been captured there, which they've been like all trying to link up, and he turns around and he's like, "Oh, they just don't know yet." And they're like, "What?" He's like, "They don't know that they're messing with the wrong people." And they're like, "I'm him." Like
He really was. That was the
he was
start of
him, dude.
Rick. At this point, Rick stood on business until up to now.
Yeah,
It was 100% business.
yeah,
He was the hill that he was dying on.
yeah, exactly. And he- so in the DVD version of this season, the finale, he turns around and because I think it's the FCC or whoever does like the you can only say so many curse words before this time on TV. It was still a little bit strict. In the DVD, he turns around and he goes, "They just don't know." And they're like, "No, what?" He goes, "They're fucking with the wrong people." And I remember watching that because I have this season on DVD, and I was like, "Oh, dude, it just hits so much harder than like, golly gee willikers, man, they're messing with the wrong folks." Yeah. So we get the beginning of Boomerang storytelling, which in my opinion is ends up kind of killing the series down the road. They peaked viewership at 13.3 million viewers in season 4. And so that's not peak, that's average, I'm sorry. Which is a 24% increase from season 3. So we're still just climbing. People are loving this shit. So season 5 comes around. It's pretty much like the end of the Terminus arc, but there's still a few things they need to do. Carol blows the joint up. The group escapes. They go to the chapel with Gabriel. So we get introduced to Gabriel, who I always compare Gabriel to Daryl, not Daryl, Dale. Uh, just kind of like that voice of reason, but Gabriel was very much more of a coward than Dale was.
Yeah.
Um, and they're kind of being tracked by the Terminus people still. So the group like lures the Terminus people back to this chapel and they fucking murder them. Like just fucking murder them, dude. Rick grabs that machete with the red handle and just fucking kills their leader. He's like, I told you.
Well, yeah, he
You
said it.
guys fucked with the wrong people. um and then once again, here we go. The group splits up. Half stays to look for Beth. The other half starts escorting Eugene to DC. Which I always thought, whenever I watched this back last, I thought it was really weird that Maggie would try to escort them to DC rather than stay and help Rick and Daryl and everybody look for Beth. Considering Beth is her fucking sister, Glenn and Maggie are like, yeah, we're just gonna go to DC. Like, you guys find Beth. When you find her, come meet us. Um, Didn't last long though because Eugene tells everybody that he lied. Um, they find out Beth was captured by that hospital place. And this is what I mean. You get that boomerang storytelling. So it's like, oh, we got a Beth episode. Then it's like 4 weeks before we see Beth again. It's just like it's when you like I said, when you watch it back streaming, like on Netflix or I think Walking Dead's on Netflix right now. It's not bad, but when you're waiting weeks to figure out what happened. So like so you're watching, right? And you see the group get captured by Terminus. And then the next week you're waiting to figure out what happened. And then you get an episode about Beth being in a hospital. And then next week comes around, it's like, oh, we're finally gonna figure out what happened to the group at Terminus. And it's like you get a episode about Carol being alone. It just like it kills that momentum. So that's what I mean by it kind of being the end. But so yeah, they find out Eugene lied. Beth gets captured by the hospital. She ends up dying because she attacked their leader. Fucking Daryl blows the leader's head off. And the whole group reconnects and decides to go to DC. And the one thing I remember from this part of this season is the group is like dying of thirst and hunger. And they're just being like walkers are just like walking behind them. Like they're just being tailed by walkers. And eventually they slow down and they get too close and they're like too fucking tired to fight. So they just get to this bridge and they just like start fucking like what's that form of martial arts? Oh, it's like the drunken monk or something.
Yeah.
Where the monks just like flailing around like dodging everything like Jar Jar Binks, and they're just like throwing walkers off the bridge. I just thought that was a really cool scene to have in the show. Tyrese ends up getting bitten and dying. R.I.P. Tyrese. T Dog 2.
He really was. He was T-Dog too.
Hot take. I liked Tyrese more than T Dog.
I can accept that. I could see why.
Big dude with hammer versus T Dog. Like
You know what? Also, hot take. I still do not know to this day whether or not I'm supposed to like or dislike Eugene.
he's just I I agree wholeheartedly. I don't even think I think that's a that might be the coldest take I've ever heard. Like Eugene gets likable way later in the series, but I don't know if you've watched that far yet. Because it's like he finally later on does grow a backbone, but I could not I just wanted Eugene to die in the worst way cuz he's very much the weakest of the entirety of the group, maybe aside from Gabriel at this point. And you have people dying like Beth who are like Beth's death kind of hit me hard because she was like the last representation of like what the world was prior to this. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? Yeah. So group meets Aaron from Alexandria after Tyrese dies, and Alexandria takes the group in, but Alexandria is filled with fucking idiots.
Yep.
So Rick is like very much putting on this show that he's like, oh, I was a cop
Oh,
before.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm following
I
you.
was this
Yeah.
cop before, and I guess I'll be this cop now. But in his mind, he's like, these people are all gonna fucking die, and we're gonna take this place as ours, dude. So he's like very much still wild man Rick. Um, and get that episode where Rick starts. You could tell Rick kind of has feelings for Jessie, the
Yep.
blonde woman from Alexandria, but she's married and has kids. Um, Rick finds out that like her husband's abusing her and the kids, but
Yeah,
he's a
Pete.
surgeon. Yeah, Pete. I have his name written down here, and I'm honestly surprised you remembered him. But yeah, but he's a surgeon, so they're like, well, we kind of need him. Rick's like, no, fuck this guy. I'll kill him right now. So he like
I can read a book.
beats his ass in the fucking middle of the street and has a gun, and so they're having like a meeting on whether or not to like oust Rick from Alexandria, and Rick like kills two walkers that got into the wall or something. And he's like, these walkers got in here and they'd killed every single one of you. And then fucking Pete comes out of nowhere with Michonne's katana and is drunk off his ass and so pissed off. And Deanna, the leader's husband, tries to like stop him from doing
Wait
something
for it.
stupid. And he just gets fucking
Wait for it.
killed.
Wait for it.
And
And then
Deanna's like, dude,
instantly, she looks at Rick and go, er,
do it.
that's
And
it.
he fucking executes
No,
Pete right in front of
no
everybody.
hesitation.
And
No hesitation.
Rick is just like, boom. He like just doesn't even fucking think about it. He just turns and kills this guy. It's like, man, Rick is just fucking crazy now, and I
Back to
love
the
Crazy Rick.
dictatorship. We're back to the dictatorship.
Well, the thing is, we never left the dictatorship. Rick,
It was on pause.
it was just on pause. He realized he needed to calm down at the prison. Then he realized, you know what, I was right. And Herschel dying very much put Rick right over the fucking edge, because Herschel was like that safety rope. It's like, hey, you're going a little too far. Let me pull you back a little bit. And when Herschel died, he didn't have that anymore. Even Carl, when Carl killed that's something I didn't mention. Remember when Carl just fucking iced that kid that was running and he was part of the governor's group? He was a kid. And Carl was
Yep.
like, he was reaching for his gun. Kid was not reaching for his gun. Carl just fucking killed him. And I mean, you just really started to see the effects that this world is having on these characters. That, prior to all this, we're just like normal fucking people. They're all doing what they have to survive. Um, Morgan comes back from season 1 at this point, sees Rick execute this man, but now Morgan's a fucking monk because he made some cheese out in the woods with some guy with a stick. Um, yeah, and right there. That's like the end of season 5. It peaked viewers at 14.4 million, which still like fucking insane for a goddamn TV show. It's an 8% increase, and the season premiere had the highest ever viewership of the series at 17.3 million people. That's just
Dang.
like, holy shit, dude. Because we kind of had that we had that cliffhanger where like, oh, we had no clue what was going to happen. For months these characters were locked, for us at least, the viewers. these characters were locked in a fucking train car. We needed to see what happened, so people tuned in, and 17.3 million people just for the premiere.
Damn.
All right. So by season 6, we're full swing Alexandria arc. Um, Rick really at this point is starting to realize he needs to find peace. He needs to lay his weapon down. He starts dating Jesse, and then of course, as soon as Rick lays his weapons down, remember the wolves that we all thought were
Hmm.
going to be way more important than they really were. Yeah, they attack. Carol was like, I think this started in season 5 where Carol was like still pretending to be this like goody two shoes. Like, I don't know how I survived this long actually if I didn't have these people. Meanwhile, Carol was fucking cold hearted. So she was like pretending this entire time. Um, season 6 was, I remember the opener was whenever they found that massive horde at the
Yeah.
quarry and they were trying to like deflect them around Alexandria. And the herd gets inside the walls of Alexandria. We had the Glenn fake out death at the beginning of that season where he crawled under a dumpster and was completely fine. Um, but Nicholas fucking died and the zombies ate him instead of Rick or Glenn. And we get the return of the guts at this point after the zombies get inside. You remember the scene where like Rick, Jesse, and her kids and Carl were all like walking through the street covered in guts, and her son was a bitch and drew attention to them. And then Jesse and her younger son just get fucking eaten. Rick fucking pulls out his axe and just fucking chops her arm off because she's holding on to Carl with a death grip. Um, and then Jesse's older son, who like is very much holding a grudge against Rick, pulls a gun on him and decides to shoot Carl, but Michonne just stabs this kid in the fucking chest. And Carl gets shot in the eye. He loses his eye. Then the entirety of the group just goes fucking nuts, killing walkers all fucking night to clear out Alexandria. Deanna dies, and then you kind of get this split season. 2 months later, Rick assumes command. He starts up a relationship with Michonne. We get introduced to Jesus and the Hilltop people, the concept of the saviors, extorting the Hilltop. And Rick is like, if you give us help with these supplies that we need, we'll kill these saviors for you. And they go kill the saviors, but little do they know they only killed like one outpost of saviors. And Maggie's pregnant at this point. They find Glenn. Um, so they're trying to get to the hilltop to help Maggie with her pregnancy, and the saviors are just blocking off fucking roads, dude. Which one of my favorite episodes of this season. The fucking saviors are fucking blocking off all the roads to the hilltop. They're just, let's navigate around this way. They go the other way. There's more saviors blocking off that road. They can't get to the hilltop until finally they have to stop and pull over. And they meet Negan for the first time, and Negan is pissed. Um, they get held hostage, and this is like the big one. This is the massive cliffhanger where he says he's gonna kill one of them, and we hear him kill him. We hear screaming. Cut to black. Don't see anything for like a year. Average viewers 13.5 million. So we're down and this is the downward trend. Um, season 6. I guess we'll just talk about season 7.
I'm gonna be honest with you before we start with all that. My prediction on the death, I originally did think it was gonna be 2, but I thought it was gonna be 100% a side character and a main character. I never thought it would be 2 main
Two main
characters.
characters. Yep.
But my predictions ended up being right. I 100%
I
knew it
thought it
would
was
end
going to
up
be
being
Glenn.
Glenn. Yeah, I thought it was gonna be Glenn too, but I was not expecting it to be Abraham as the secondary character.
Yep. Uh,
But then it was because he was the only one that just stared down Negan when Negan was walking
he
around,
was
like,
probably the only character at that point that was like, "Fuck this guy." Everybody
"Bro,
else
I've
was
been
scared shitless. Abraham's like, "Fuck you."
I've
And
been through war, bitch. You ain't it."
yep. Yeah, so season 7 comes along. And I'll touch on it. The only reason I kind of really thought it was going to be Glenn was because they foreshadowed his death so early on into that season. And it ended
Yeah.
up being a fake out death, and it's like, which in a
I'm holding
way
on
is
to that.
like which in a way is like kind of disingenuous. So it's like, oh, remember when we almost killed this character? Yeah, he's dead now. It's just like, dude. And he died because he died because of fucking Daryl not being able to keep his mouth shut. And fucking Negan's like, I will shut that shit down. And then he fucking bashes Glenn's head in with a baseball bat. Old
I
Lucille.
did I loved all of Negan's quips during that little scene
Dude,
there. He's just like, "Oh, you're still in there."
he
Like,
was
"Oh,
just like, dude, he's the epitome of like a Call of Duty troll. Just like shit talking in the fucking search and destroy lobby. It's just like so like he's the bad guy that everybody fucking loved. Like you hated this fucking guy, but you loved to hate him. And he was just so he was evil but so charismatic about how evil he was. So I mean,
another thing was."
we're full swing into season 7, the Negan arc. Um,
One thing I did like, I'm not sure if you knew about, but every single time that either Abraham or Sasha would leave for, like, like a small raid or something like that, they would always give themselves, like, a peace sign but never say bye.
yeah,
Well, when you notice right when Abraham's about to get his head smashed in, he's slightly holding up the peace sign
I
towards Sasha.
I have noticed that.
Dude,
Very
that hurt
cool.
so hard because I knew it was done for.
Oh, I always liked Rosita out of that whole situation though, and I could never figure out why. Yeah, yes, she's attractive. Okay, do you know the actor that plays Rosita? Did you ever watch Ned's Declassified on Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
The actress that plays Rosita is Susie Crabgrass from Ned's Declassified.
Holy shit.
I never realized that until
That's wild.
like maybe a month ago. But yeah, man. So Negan kills Abraham and Glenn at the start of season 7. We're full blown Negan arc, full blown Savior arc, and yeah, Daryl gets held hostage over on Easy Street. Do you remember that fucking episode? I was so just fucking tired of hearing that song that episode. We're still boomerang storytelling, so like we're not getting enough to satisfy the hunger. You know, it's 4 weeks before we see any meaningful change in the actual stories that we care about. Um, Negan takes half their shit, and he decides what is half. I remember the one piece of
Yeah,
imagery.
7/8.
Yeah,
That's half,
for
7/8
real.
of it.
And they took everything. Do you remember the one piece of imagery that I always really liked from this season was they took all their mattresses and then they just burned them in the road outside of Alexandria. It's like, dude, that's a fucking power play right there. They
That it
took their
is.
fucking beds and burned them. Um, but yeah, like all in all, season 7, it was just like it capped off what happened in season 6, but like not a whole lot really did happen. Um, Eugene started making ammo. Rosita tried to kill Negan. Negan captures Eugene to make more ammo for him. They lose all their guns. It's like we're just seeing our group get beat the fuck. We get introduced. Well, Simon Trevor from GTA, he was introduced in season 6, but like we really get to see him become a full fleshed character, and by that I mean he's Trevor from GTA in
Yeah.
season 7. um, um, Finally, I guess Rick had enough, and Carl went to the sanctuary. Carl wants to fight. Rick finally has enough, and he goes, "Okay, we're gonna fight these people." Um, so he starts building up alliances with Alexander. So it's like the Alexandria, Hilltop, and Oceanside alliance, and oh, in the Kingdom, and then they go to the Scavengers, which is that weird chick. What's her name?
Oh, I know exactly which one you're talking about over in the
Oh, hold
scrapyard.
on. Yeah, yeah, the Scrapyard.
Mhm.
Oh, I have her name written down. Anyway, J- Jadis, Jadis. That's her name. Uh, Dwight turns on Negan and becomes a double agent. They're man on the inside. Uh, they build this alliance with the Scavs, but the Scavs end up betraying them all, and a fight breaks out at Alexandria, and the Saviors have to retreat. They take down a bunch of Scavs, and season 8. So, like, really, not a lot. They could have cut a lot out of season 7 and mixed season 7 with season 8 and had one like banger fucking season. But because of boomerang storytelling, it's like, oh, let's tell this little story over here. Let's tell this little story over here. Let's tell this little story. Okay, one episode of main story. Back to little story. Little story. Little story. Main story. Like everybody wants to just see the main story, but we're telling like 16 little stories in between everything. Season 8, still Negan. They start that remember the blockade where they like drive all the cars with panels on them and they like blockade the sanctuary. Uh Battles on multiple fronts, the Hilltops fighting them over here, Oceanside over here, Alexandria's fighting them at sanctuary. Carl gets bitten. People get out of the sanctuary, burn down Alexandria. People at the sanctuary still like begin to turn on Negan kind of because it's like, hey, we're stuck in here. Like we're gonna die in here. Um, Rick finally convinces the scavs to fully turn on Negan. Simon goes out and kills all of the scabs but Jadis against Negan's wishes, and Negan ends up killing Simon. Eugene makes all that faulty ammo. They have one last battle. All the Savior's guns misfire. They end up being defeated by the Alexandrians, the people from the kingdom and Oceanside. And Rick slits Negan's throat, but ends up having that Dr. Sadiq, I think is his name. The doctor that Carl saved. Save Negan. And Maggie gets pissed because uh Negan's still alive after he killed Glenn. So that's what I mean. Like, not a there's some like interesting stuff that happened, but they could have cut a bunch of stuff out of both season 7 and 8 and made one big fucking banger season. Got the whole arc done with. But I remember like by the end of season 8, it was where like should have been this big culmination. I was just like, man, finally, like now we can move on. Little did I know what we were gonna move on to. So yeah, Maggie's pissed. Kind of creates some fractures in season 9. Season 9 was the beginning of a new showrunner. So Scott Gimble, they started seeing like decline in Scott's numbers ever since season 4, I believe. No, season 5, and people were like upset because it just very much felt like he was dragging stuff on. Um, so Angela Kang came in, and she was the showrunner till season 11. This is what they called I'm calling it the Reconstruction arc. It's like 18 months after the war with the Saviors. Negan's in prison. Bunch of turmoil between the communities. They're like rebuilding all of Alexandria, the hilltop, all of that shit. Maggie executes that Gregory guy for trying to assassinate her, essentially. Oceanside starts killing saviors. They're building this big bridge. The herd attacks the construction site. Rick gets impaled while he's trying to lead them away, and Rick dies blowing up the bridge, but not really because he's taken away by a helicopter with Jadis. So it's like it just gets very fucking boring right here. It's like they just finally wrapped up. It's like once again, this first half of season 9 could have been part of season 7 and 8 if they just cut some shit out. You know, it's like we start getting into this issue where like they're not willing to end it. They're not willing to like end it and start new. They're just let's do this next season. It's like, okay, well let's tell half a story next season. However, the second half of season 9, I will say, pretty damn good because Angela Kang kind of needed to finish what Scott Gimble had started but didn't finish, and then she wanted to tell this whole story, which is the Whispers. Have you
Mm,
seen the Whisper arc?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So I actually really enjoyed this arc. It's like a 6-year time jump. Rick's gone. Communities are all like divided now. They don't talk to each other. Michonne raising Judith. Uh Carol and Ezekiel got married. Rosita's pregnant. She's dating Gabriel. Um Maggie and her son kind of left the show. Daryl lives alone with a dog named Dog, and he spent like the last 6 years just looking for Rick. Judith saves a bunch of new characters. Whispers emerge. Get introduced to Lydia, which is Alpha's daughter. I'm just like going through this really quickly at this point.
Hmm.
Um, the kingdom is like collapsing, so they want to have this fair. And at this point, there's been confrontation with the Whispers, and Alpha is the leader of the Whispers. Her name is Alpha. She's pissed, so she attacks the fair as revenge for like Lydia leaving her. And Alpha warns the group that if they cross into their territory, they're gonna like lead a horde straight to all of their communities. And at the end of this fair, like I guess they infiltrated it, and they said if you walk that way, you're gonna see our boundary that we put up. Do not cross our boundary. And they go out, and on the fucking hill, there's severed heads of multiple, like at this point, main characters, including Ezekiel and Carol's son Henry. Tara's dead now. Enid's dead, and a bunch of other people. I believe they were just like like highway robbery people that they hired to like defend the fair, keep the roadways clear. And the one line I really remember from this season is Ezekiel's like, we were so divided for so long that we didn't know each other's people, and we let these enemies in our gates because we didn't know each other. It's like we've been divided for too long. We need to come together. At the end of the season, there's a big blizzard. This is many months later. The kingdom falls, and everybody from the kingdom moves to Hilltop. So I would have much rather seen that whole like arc fleshed out a little bit more by moving like the first half of season 9 into season 7, 8, and just making one good long season. Season 10, we're still full swing Whisper arc. And the reason I'm kind of going through this a little bit faster is because, one, we're at an hour already. But right before season 9 was when I quit watching.
Mm.
So I only watched on Netflix. So I'm assuming you probably quit after season 9. Um, so season 10, it's still Whisper arc. Many months have passed. Um, Ezekiel Carroll broke up. Eugene meets this girl named Stephanie on a radio. She's from the Commonwealth, who's big in season 11, the final season. There's a forest fire. Michonne orders people across the border with the Whispers to put out the fire. Alpha gets pissed, sends Whispers to attack, and they start infiltrating the different communities. There's a guy named Dante. He's a spy. He ends up getting caught and killed by Gabriel. So Gabriel was like a badass at this point. And then Michonne just leaves her children to go find Rick, you know. So at this point, it's like the only characters we have left are Carol and Daryl.
Yo, could somebody tell me why Daryl is in France?
In the news shit, how's he get there? Did he hop on a fucking plane, call up Spirit Airlines, like, yo,
Yo, he
I'm
rode
coming
his
over?
motorcycle across. What are you
He rode.
talking about?
He. I'm so fucking. This how he rode the blood burner across the ocean
He must have.
from the fucking from Modern Warfare Zombies. The fucking. Do you know the blood burner can drive on water?
Hmm.
Fucking Daryl riding a blood burner.
It's like I saw that and I was like, how? If you can properly explain, and then you get over there and they're like mutated zombies with fucking acid power. What?
I haven't. Is that out yet?
I think it might be. I don't know.
We'll get into
All
that.
I know is that the zombies in France, if they touch you, it literally burns.
I haven't. I don't know, dude. Dead City is what it's called, right?
I think so, yeah.
We're not even getting into Fear the Walking Dead. I didn't watch any of that. Like, I
I
just.
got through the first season. I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty good." Never touched it again.
I think I did the same thing. I was like, nah. Season 10 continues. So Eugene goes off to the Commonwealth, but we don't know they're the Commonwealth yet to try to get help to fight the Whispers. Carol sends Negan to infiltrate the Whispers. Uh, Negan and the Whispers burn Hilltop to the ground, and Negan gains Alpha's trust and then murders her and cuts her fucking head off. Um, but Bait is still alive, so he begins leading the herd towards Alexandria. Daryl kills him. Lydia and Carol lead the whole herd off a cliff. And then we get into season 11, which is just a fucking drag. You know, I actually had a hard time writing notes for this season because there's just so much fucking. I don't want to say garbage because it is interesting, but it's not interesting for The Walking Dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So once again, another rival group comes about called the Reapers. Alexandria is low on food. Maggie returns to the group. I guess she kind of returned in season 10, but didn't do a whole lot. Um, yeah. Daryl's ex girlfriend from the 6 years where he was off looking for Rick is a member of these people. Negan and Maggie team up to defeat the Reapers, and Maggie slaughters all of them except for Daryl's girlfriend. And then you get into the Commonwealth arc. It was just like, oh, pit stop before we get into what this whole season's really about, which is just this running theme with this show at this point. Um, so Eugene and a small group were already at the Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth consists of 50,000 survivors, although we only ever see like 100 of them in the show. Um, Commonwealth brings supplies to Alexandria as aid, offers residency. Bunch of people don't want to go, bunch of people do go. And then you kind of just get back to modern day problems like rich versus poor political issues, corrupt government officials. That's just right there's the disconnect for me. And Alexandria gets turned into a labor camp. The captors rebel and overthrow the government, and they there's some cool shit, but it's like that is the easiest way for me to describe it. Is like, oh, they rebel against the government. There's shit that happens, but it's like not as cool as anything from season like 1 to 5 and 6. I'd say season 1 through 6 is peak for me. Season 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 just didn't get me here. They didn't get me in the heart. And then the
Yeah, the fact
series,
that anything past 7 really I mean, it was I'm not gonna say it wasn't good, but it didn't hold my attention like the previous 6 did.
yeah. And I think it's important to look at it as for seasons 1 through 5, like Netflix was just on the come up. Like streaming services were on the come up. That's just the atmosphere that it was. So a lot of people just were like, oh, okay, the way we're consuming these TV shows is different. But they're still writing this as a TV show that's displayed on TV rather than like a binge watching service, right? Um, season 11 barely got 2 million viewers. So I think
I
that just
believe
shows
it.
the fucking decline. Considering season 1 opened with like what, 5.6 million? Season 11, the finale of The Walking Dead, barely cleared 2 million viewers. And the series ends, but not really, because we have a Rick and Michonne spinoff, a Maggie and Negan spinoff, and a Daryl in France spinoff. It's like, why though? Like, what are you doing? Why are you? They're trying to make the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but The Walking Dead, and it's just exhausting because they won't let anything end. And dude, show was just I'm not gonna say that like season 10 and 9 didn't have some good parts to them, but when you only have like two original characters left, it's like I don't care. Like even Michonne, yes, not an original character, but like very much a member of the group. Season 10 and 11, it's like just like nothing is going on with characters that I care about. And yeah, I did say that like earlier in the seasons that you could tell that certain characters were getting plot armor. But as soon as like you started to feel that, they would kill like Glenn or Abraham. And I don't know, man. I just I feel so when I talk about season 11 of The Walking Dead. I just feel so incomplete. about it, you know? Like it just did not actually end. And I'm probably not going to watch, maybe I'll watch Rick and Michonne, but I'm not going to watch the Negan and Maggie spinoff. I'm not going to watch the Daryl spinoff. I'm just not. Don't want to.
I'd rather go back and play all the Walking Dead games than do the spin-offs.
I played a couple. What's the first like chapter that with the Clementine girl? I
Yep.
played a little bit of that. I just couldn't get over like the format of it, you
Mm.
know. I'd probably be fine with it now that I'm older. Sorry, that came out of nowhere. Like I said, probably be fine with it now that I'm older, but like when I was younger, I just didn't have the attention span to like understand how to do that. It wasn't Call of Duty. I couldn't just point and shoot. It's a very much a decision making game, but I hear they're very good.
They are. They are. There's to this day the main story for The Walking Dead, the game. There's still a few points in that haunts me.
Yeah,
Like
maybe I should
worse
play it.
than like any death in the show.
Really?
Yeah, like some of the stuff in the game was peak over the show. Not like scenes, not like that, but like for a storytelling point of view, there were some aspects in there that I was more upset in the game than I would have ever been in the show. Like T Dog's death had no effect over something that happened in the game.
Wow. Okay, so I need to play it.
It's for its time, it was good. The storytelling, everything, the art style. I mean, they were trying to make it more like a comic art style kind of deal. But I mean, if I had to say, I'd yeah, no, there's a few, and by a few, I'm not going to say nothing. But yeah, there's one character you will absolutely fall in love with if you play the game, and I'm not going to lie, this character may not make it.
And see, that's what I liked about the earlier seasons. It's like
Like,
anybody could die. Anybody. You fall in love with fucking Dale. Dale dies. You really start you, you think, "Oh, Lori can't die. She's pregnant." And then she dies. It's like, "Wow." And for a while we weren't sure if like little ass kicker was going to live because we thought like what if she dies? What if like the baby dies remember that? What if the baby dies
mhm.
inside Lori and then the baby kills Lori? Yeah. It's like just so crazy. And
I
then
feel like Dale was happy to die though, because he didn't have to work on that goddamn RV anymore.
it's funny you say that, and here's why. Dale was a personal friend of the original showrunner for season one who ended up getting fired. He ended up getting let go. Um, Frank Darabont. His he was cast because Frank was a personal friend, and whenever Frank Darabont was let go, the guy that played Dale was like, "Write my character out of this story," because he did not want to work on the project anymore without Frank.
Mm.
So yeah, he was happy to die. Yeah, it's like, and I think I said it before. I think the thing that made the deaths so meaningful was that they were characters from, characters that always were representation of the old world that were dying. It went to show that hey, like these characters cling on to that too much, and that's the reason they're going to die because they're not strong enough. They're not capable of doing what is necessary to survive. Rick bit a dude's fucking throat out to survive.
I think
And
my favorite thing was they wrote Daryl as a character and he never
he
existed.
never existed in the comics. He
Nope.
went in to do Merle, and they loved him so much, but they thought Michael Rooker played a better Merle, so they wrote
Yeah.
Daryl his own character. But because they loved him so much that, like, hey, you want to play this new character? Little fucking remember the Breaking Bad Easter egg in season 2 where it's like, oh, it's Merle's stash. It's got all kinds of drugs in there, and he pulls out the bag, and it's got the sky blue meth from Breaking Bad in it.
Yep.
Yeah, just if I had to say, season 3 is probably my favorite. I liked up till season 6, and then it just was downhill from there on. And I not that I didn't want resolution to the Savior and the Negan arc, but just like how dragged out. I mean, we had essentially it was 3 fucking seasons of Negan out of an 11 season show. That's 30% of your show is all about the Saviors and Negan in this war that's going on, and it just, the fact that it drug on for so long is what kind of threw me off of the rest of the show, and for good reason. And while I didn't hate the whole Whisper arc, it kind of did the same thing. Like, you should have maybe just done 1 season, pushed everything that happened beginning half of season 9 back into season 7 and 8, condensed all that, cut a bunch of the garbage out. And that eventually is what ended up causing what's his name? Where's he at? Scott Gimble to be to leave the show. Is the fact that he was just putting too much filler episodes into this show. By that point, though, like, viewership was already in a decline, and there wasn't much they could really do. Had some good moments over the years,
Yep.
and I don't think there's a TV show that had ever come out. I'll say from at least seasons 1 through 6 that had that type of effect on society, effect on me. It was a huge part of my childhood, and I'll always remember it fondly.
I say that's a good point to end it on. That's
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I'm sure we could have kept going
Oh,
more
we could
nitty-gritty,
we could just sit here and talk about like our favorite parts, everything. But well, I think we're gonna
but
wrap it up here.
all right. All right.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. If you feel free to follow us on our socials, I'm Dr. Blunts. Follow me over on Twitch. Follow Dante Vortex Hawkeyes at youtube.com. Links down in the description. Like I said, check out Spotify. Spotify people, come check out the videos because we're over on YouTube at Gameflix and Chill. We do a lot of visual stuff. Like, I talk with my hands a lot, so I do some funny stuff if you want to check us out over here. Thanks for listening.